that have, to coin the phrase, to use the phrase, kiss the ring of Donald Trump. So here she is speaking about, if we told you about the story that the president has basically shut out a bunch of DC law firms, taken their access from federal buildings because he felt they were involved in investigations in the past against him. So the way he got revenge on them and said, you can't work in these buildings. And they said, okay, we'll apologize and we'll do free work for you. Here's what Kamala Harris thinks of that.
We are seeing organizations stay quiet. We are seeing those who are capitulating to clearly unconstitutional threats. And these are the things that we are witnessing each day in these last few months in our country. And it understandably creates a great sense of fear. Because, you know, there were many things that we knew would happen. Many things. I'm not here, so I told you so.
Aren't you, though? I mean, I know she knew exactly here to tell you. I told you so.
Exactly what she was doing in that. Her husband's law firm is Wilkie, Farr and Gallagher. Doug Emhoff apparently has been against internally this idea of making this deal with Trump. But if you know, she didn't specifically say law firm. She didn't specifically say their name. But that could have been what she's hinting at.
Unconstitutional threats.
Yes. But Kamala Harris's name is also in the news this week because of this new book, which is getting a whole lot of buzz. It's called Fight: Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House. It's written by Jonathan Allen and our next guest, Amie Parnes. It's the third book they've worked together on, talking about these incredible campaigns. And this might be the most
taking you inside the campaign book in a way that you...
Basically, you're a fly in the wall in the most interesting, crazy rooms. It's like the real-life West Wing. And Amie Parnes joins us now to talk about it. Congrats on the book.
Thank you. Thank you. I wish it weren't true, but it's true. And we tried to write it a bit like a telenovela, but it's all truth.
You've got the combination of the West Wing, Veep, and also, you know, like all of it together there. So let's talk though about what's going on first with Kamala Harris right now. What do you make of her moves this week, coming out, speaking to this group, this question in her mind? Do I run for president? Do I run for governor of California? What do you make of what she's doing?
Yeah, it's interesting because I know she left the White House and the vice president's office, and she wanted to take a breath. And I talked to a lot of her aides about that. She really wanted to take some downtime to process what was happening. And then now she's clearly reemerging. And, you know, she's thinking about running for governor. Obviously, her aides tell me that she's very interested in that idea. She's also bouncing around whether or not 2028 looks like a good possibility for her. So it's interesting that she's reemerging. She's making, she's making another entry into the political world, and I'm curious to see how she's, received.
Well, you know, Amie, one of the things in your book that I found really shocking was her reaction to losing the election, and it almost made me feel like maybe she's not going to do this again. I mean, obviously, she is talking a lot about the possibility of running for governor here in California, but the fact that she was so, the way the people that you spoke to described almost blindsided by losing the election, it made me feel like, all right, she's gonna be gun shy to jump into another campaign.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's told her aides, and she told her aides after the election ended, that she felt like if she had more time, she could have won this thing. But the thing that we report in this book that is fascinating to me, I mean, I didn't even know this going into it, but they really thought that they were going to win. And when she does find out, we take you inside her house at the Naval Observatory where she is that night, and she is almost without words.
You also take us inside the room in this crazy, we've never seen this before experience we all went through of President Biden dropping out and then Kamala Harris's move to try to consolidate the Democratic Party behind her as quickly as possible so there wouldn't be a competition. But somebody who was not into that idea was Barack Obama, the last Democratic president. Talk about their dynamic, because for years we've been told the two of them were close.
You know, they're close, and let's not forget he, at one point in his presidency, said that she was the best-looking attorney general in the country, which got him in a little bit of hot water.
A little bit of trouble, right?
But, you know, she's always sort of, as we report in the book, she's always tried to cozy up to him. She respects him quite a bit. She was really upset by the fact that he took several days to get behind her. She knew that he was working, you know, he was trying to take the temperature of lawmakers because he was interested maybe in perhaps doing an open primary and was interested in that idea. And so there were some very hurt feelings on her part.
And the open primary idea is basically suggesting that they don't think that she could win, something you think that Nancy Pelosi was also trying to orchestrate, and that there would be a different candidate because they were fearful of what exactly happened, Kamala Harris losing.
Exactly. I mean, Nancy Pelosi, right off the bat, you know, even the night of, she told someone, she said, you know, I'm fearful of the fact that they'll try to push him out and then Kamala will be the nominee. And we need to not do that. We need to see what's going to happen. She always, I think the former House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, she always felt like that Harris couldn't win this election. And so she was also trying to look at other options. I think the former president, Obama, he was also looking for other options. He wasn't quite convinced that that was the right Democratic ticket. And a couple of people told us that he floated names like Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, and he was really into the idea of Gretchen Whitmer. He thinks highly of her. So he thought that other people would kind of be a better pick or better picks than the ones that Democrats had.
So, Amie, do you think going forward the Democrats learn anything from, I mean, your book, I was saying to Elex that the title will probably draw in a lot of Trump supporters, but this book to me seems like it's really for the Democrats to learn something here because, and try to figure out what they do in 2028, because obviously, and this book details it, it was a mess heading into the last election.
It was, and you know, Kamala Harris also used fight, which is why we thought it was really interesting. And I think no better word encapsulates this moment better than fight. Democrats are in fighting mode right now. And I think that what is going to happen is, Democrats need to look at this. You know, I think a lot of Democrats are a little put off by it right now. They don't want to know what happened. They kind of want to bounce back from this time and figure it out. But I think this book is not only just a look back at the past, it's a playbook on how to proceed and what they did wrong. And there was a lot that went wrong. They could have won this election. My co-author and I greatly believe that, but there were so many missteps along the way. And I think this, like our other books, like Shattered, which was a huge hit in 2016, kind of presents that guidebook and gives you sort of a way to, or gives Democrats a way to perfect what they, or do better next time, I should say.
All right. Well, I hope that there are a lot of people reading the book, whether they're in politics or not. There are a lot of lessons to be learned here. Amie, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. All right. We are going to take a break, and when we come back, the government is clearly not done digging into Diddy and what's been going on in his world. New charges announced this morning. They are piling on, and we will tell you what those charges are and what it could mean for him. He's convicted. The federal prosecutors promised when they announced the charges against Diddy, the indictment, that they were going to continue investigating. They said this is an open investigation, which certainly hinted we're not done charging this guy. And that has come true because they have now announced a superseding indictment, which basically says, which is fancy term for we got new charges.
More charges.
More charges. And by the way, this is the second superseding indictment. So they are
superseding.
Yeah, exactly. It should have been. Yeah, isn't it a double superseding indictment?
Superseding.
The new charges relate to victim 2, and you remember the last time they added on more charges, they added victim 2 and victim 3. Victim 1, we all believe to be Cassie because Diddy's people have referred to victim 1 as being Cassie. But victim 2 and number 3, we don't know their identities. But now the feds are saying that allegedly Diddy was doing other things with this victim 2 that they didn't know about. And now they have enough evidence to bring this.
So those charges are sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Which is interesting because you all have this great new documentary out talking about Diddy's defense, and the mock jury in that were uncomfortable with some of these ideas of sex trafficking and prostitution and this concept of whether this really was consensual and whether they seem to think, some of them, that the government was going too far by suggesting sex trafficking.
And here they are adding more of those charges.
Well, the interesting thing is no matter how many indictments or charges, get put out, people are just really want to see the trial. We've heard of enough allegations, enough innuendos, and people really want to see facts at this point. I've been seeing a lot of reactions that people just kind of want to see if it's true or not at this point.
Yeah, especially because these new charges are repeating some of the charges against victim 1. So he's now facing a total of 5 counts. It had been 3, but
it's suggesting that there was a pattern, right? That it wasn't just this one person, and that's what the government. And so that you could see another superseding indictment for victim number 3 if they're able to prove in their minds the same pattern for that person.
What is interesting is that the clock is ticking. We're getting closer. The trial is scheduled to begin the beginning of May, and so to be adding these charges, because they're the same charges as they've put on the other victim, on victim 1, maybe it's easier for the defense. But I would imagine if you're the defense, you're going, look, we're trying to figure out our strategy. We're trying to, and you're adding these charges.
Do you guys think this will be the trial of the decade?
I think a lot of it depends on how much we see these other big names, which could make it even a bigger deal. But part of the issue, Trent, is that this is not going to be on camera, right?
And being a federal case,
people don't get to see the drama the way that they did on like the OJ case, where you watch it like a reality show.
Right. It's going to be a lot of courtroom reporting and sketches,
which are not great on TV or not great online.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Maritza. I'm from New Jersey by way of Brooklyn. And I don't think that this looks good for Diddy at all. I think that the feds are not playing. I think that adding these charges a month before trial is set to begin is very telling. I'm afraid to see what else is going to come out during trial. And I'm curious to see who the second victim is.
Yeah, we don't know how the government's going to deal with this, by the way, because they have not revealed the identities. Do they clear the court so that the testimony is not seen by the public, or are they going to reveal who the victims are? Just another thing to look for when it starts. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, George Clooney has a huge night in New York City, making his debut on Broadway. But someone stole the show. Actually, I would say 2 people stole the show. One person who was there and one person who wasn't, very interestingly. Welcome back to TMZ Live. George Clooney had a big night with an old project that he is now debuting in a different form. You remember
some new hair.
His Oscar-nominated film, Good Night and Good Luck, is now on Broadway. And George is stepping into the role of Edward R. Murrow, which had been played by David Strathairn. Yeah.
And George Clooney had written and directed the previous movie. He was part of the other movie, and now he's starring in the lead role.
So if you're George Clooney and you're making your Broadway debut, all of your famous friends are going to come out, right? They did. Obviously, he was holding court outside the Winter Garden Theater in Times Square, but he got all the support you'd expect. His good buddy Randy Gerber was there with his wife Cindy and daughter Kaya. Jennifer Lopez, who, by the way, that's not a dress you wear just to be like, oh, I'm going to support my friend George Clooney.
And who's the person sitting behind her?
the cape has to come off, right? The cape's
Right?
got to come off.
I mean,
when
can
she
you
sits
imagine?
down.
I'm behind Jennifer Lopez, but then you've spent all this money on this ticket.
All I can see is the cape.
Well, to be fair, I think she took off the cape when she sat down because she also took it off when she was making her entrance, and she looked stunning in it. But the thing that was more surprising to me is that George Clooney's wife was nowhere to be seen. She was at home with the kids, and it's your husband's Broadway debut. So the fact that she wasn't there is so odd to me, and I don't think it's really fair to say, like, she was watching the kids because you knew this scene was coming.
What do you mean you can't say it's fair? I mean, George
You can
was
find
asked
a
about
sitter.
it, and he knew that this was going to be a question, so he very openly said, look, she's home with their kids are 7, the twins, and he said, yes, she's at home with the kids. They live in New York City now. They all moved there while he was preparing for the play, but I know it does sound weird.
It is a little
that
weird.
You wouldn't be able to get a babysitter.
Yeah.
It's not
Someone
a
to watch the
surprise day, Charles. They knew that this day was coming. They had months and months to plan to get a sitter. They could have figured it out. It's not just any other movie. It's his very first show ever on Broadway. So you think that she would be there for the premiere of it.
She's probably seen all the rehearsals, though. It's like she's like, all right, I've already seen it. Do I have to sit through it again?
It was
Well,
cool.
I like to think that she's a little bit mad that he dyed his hair and cut the beard because George looks so much better as a silver fox, and to see him clean shaven is a little upsetting to me, so I could be on her side if that's also the reasoning.
Hi, I'm McKenna. I'm from Western New York. Being a former theater kid, it always really excites me to see actors I've seen in movies and TV expand their repertoire into Broadway. I think having other successful Broadway actors there last night at the opening, like Hugh Jackman and Rachel Zegler, really bodes well for the success of Good Night and Good Luck. And I'm really excited to see what Clooney brings to Broadway.
I mean, it's really cool that both at the same time this is happening, you have Denzel Washington and Jake Gyllenhaal in Othello on Broadway, which just made its debut as well. So what a time
The
to
Tony
be in New
Awards
York.
are going to look more like the Oscars.
Yeah, bigger stars than at the Oscars, honestly.
By the way, he's not going to get in. Even if he were to win a Tony, it's only an OT. He doesn't have an Emmy, which is weird. Doesn't have a Grammy either, which you'd expect. So no EGOT coming up.
Robbed for ER.
It is interesting that he doesn't have one for ER.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively.
Can we say good night and good luck to this story?
We can't because remember they do have a trial date set for next March or next February.
We gotta wait an entire year?
If it ends up going that far. But there were new filings in this case. And basically this was Justin's response to Blake's motion to dismiss. Remember, she and Ryan Reynolds have both filed motions to be dismissed from Justin's lawsuit. And Justin is, as you would expect, opposing it on the grounds that it is his First Amendment right to drag her into court and defend himself. He said, his attorney Brian Friedman told us, Ms. Lively and her circle of Hollywood elites cannot prevent my clients from exercising their constitutional right to petition the court to clear their names from her false and harmful claims. So you have him invoking the Constitution, saying that this is his First Amendment right to do this, and therefore you cannot throw this case out. Well, I think Blake Lively's attorneys were licking their chops when they saw Brian Friedman reference the Constitution. They said, that's right. Justin Baldoni believes that the First Amendment rights of victims of sexual assault and harassment to speak out should give way to the rights of perpetrators to sue their victims, quote, into oblivion.
Okay.
Which was something that that had been said by Justin's producing partner. Yeah.
It's remarkable. There's a lot of ink spilled in these court documents between the lawyers, but really it's just a vessel for the two lawyers to get out and spar in public in this way. And one touting the First Amendment, the other saying, how dare you silence victims? I'm a victim, raised a sexual harassment claim, and you're trying to silence me. How ironic. It's really just a war of words. The lawsuit is such a sideshow at this point. It's just an opportunity for Brian Friedman to tell his side again.
Can either one of them really work effectively while this is all going on? Because if they were to have a project, I mean, would they be able to promote it? Would they be able to talk? I mean, I don't know.
What's interesting is that Blake is working, and it has been the sequel to Simple Favor. And she has, promoting it has been a challenge. Obviously, she doesn't want to get a bunch of questions about this.
Right.
So you're right, it does make it difficult to promote something else. Justin is not working and says that he's essentially been pushed out of Hollywood because, remember, he got dropped by his agency,
right?
Which was the same agency as Ryan Reynolds. So he feels like this is the campaign to shut him down, which is why he is pushing nonstop to get this thing into court.
And he might have a little bit more success in coming back because he has his own production company, because he's his own director, because he's written a lot of stuff himself. He may have some power in creating stuff for himself that other actors.
But then he's got to get people to work
finance
with him,
right,
and to finance
and bring on the team.
Hi, my name is Esther, calling from Chicago. The harder Blake Lively tries to revive her career, the worse it backfires on her. She needs to stop playing a victim. She's not a victim. You can't just clear your name after trying to destroy an innocent man. We all want justice for Justin Baldoni, and we want the director's cut. We want to see his cut from the movie. And in my opinion, Amber Heard could come back to the States because she beat her out of this.
So were you a Justin Baldoni fan before this?
No, I didn't even, I never even read the book until like later when I saw the movie and this all came out. And then I researched, it was all on TikTok, and I couldn't believe it. He's such a good man. You could tell. And the way the way she treated not only her, but her husband, Ryan, that was ridiculous. And he's innocent. And I think both of their careers are over, and they're just trying to.
Well, I think that is definitely hyperbole to say that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' careers are over. Far from that. But you're right. It does seem on TikTok, Justin Baldoni's winning. The problem is TikTok is not a court of law.
Yeah, but she brings up Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, and so much of that played out on TikTok too, which drove a lot of the interest in the whole thing.
Indeed. All right, we are going to take a break. When we come back, if you, like millions of Americans, are getting hit hard in the wallet by the tariffs, you're going to love this next story, because how the Trump administration came up with these tariffs, there are a lot of people online who say they didn't really do a lot of homework. They just used AI. How do you feel about that? How does your bank account feel about that? There is a phrase in the world of math, not that I'm great at math, but I know some people who are very good at it, and is show your work.
Right.
You got to show your work. And the Trump administration decided to show their work. How they came up with all of the tariffs, the reciprocal tariffs that are now being levied against, how many countries is it? More than 100 or 100 countries, something like that. And by the way, those tariffs, whether here's the thing, I think 5 years ago, nobody cared about the word tariff. But they care today, because since he announced that, we all know what has happened with the stock market and to lots of people's 401ks. Going down. So people were curious online, how exactly did the Trump administration arrive at these numbers that are affecting all of us in a very direct way? How did they come up with these numbers for the tariffs? The answer, according to several people, lots of people online, is AI. That they used artificial intelligence to come up with these numbers, and there are people who have basically gone online, they've plugged numbers into ChatGPT or asked ChatGPT to come up with a tariff plan for the United States. And what they've shown on several different platforms, not just ChatGPT, that they've come up with numbers that are extremely similar to the ones that the administration has put out there. So all of this, you may go, well, who cares?
Yeah, right. I mean, it could be a good thing, right? The idea that they're using technology. You've got Elon Musk, one of the great technology minds there. Maybe we should be using technology.
The problem, I would say, is if it's affecting you in a very direct way financially, I think you want, I would like to know that there was some real thought, not only put into coming up with the numbers, but figuring out what the impact of those numbers was going to be. And that's what ChatGPT, what AI models can't do.
Yeah.
They're just giving you, you're putting in numbers, they're going to spit out numbers.
Charles.
It doesn't take into account the human factor. It doesn't take into account of how other countries are going to respond. It doesn't take into account how it's impacting Americans' 401ks. It doesn't do all of that. And so if the administration, if they really did, and they're not saying, by the way, this is what people are putting out online, but if they really did use AI and didn't think about all those other things, well, now I'm pissed.
I mean, look, artificial intelligence, if it was used, it lands planes. It does a lot of complicated tasks, and I don't see the harm really in using something if they did, which they say they don't. I don't understand this controversy.
Landing planes is a matter of physics. That is numbers, right? That's all numbers. This isn't coming up with the tariffs is numbers, but you gotta, if you're leading a country or countries, you have to think about, you can come up with numbers, but then you got to think about what is the impact of those numbers on my constituents.
And the impact is huge. You know, I'm not an economist. I'm a political reporter and political analyst. And this is a story that breaks through everything. So many people see politics as this reality show between a bunch of people with big egos, and they just say, whatever, I'm not interested. But this, every single one of us are going to pay for this in one way or another. Everything that you buy, everything you interact with is about to get more expensive. If you're a Trump fan, you say, we're in, it's going to get better, it's worth the temporary pain. But if you're not, you are really angry. And if you're one of those who were sort of Trump skeptical, didn't love Kamala Harris, but said Trump's the guy that understands the economy, he's a business guy, he's going to bring our costs down, we're frustrated with the price of eggs, and all of a sudden, and you look and the economy is in a free fall and everything you buy is now more expensive, you're like, what the heck did I just do? And right now, it seems like Republicans are totally unwilling to stand up to him to stop this.
Well, but
and that could really hurt.
But Republicans may just believe that it's going to get better. Yeah, they may believe it's going to get better.
I heard forever in Democratic administrations, the stock market, the Republicans with the stock market, it's all for the rich people. Who cares about the stock market? Now that the stock market's tanking, it's like, oh, the old people in their 401ks, they're going to die poor. Let's at least be consistent, for crying out loud. And those eggs are pretty cheap now. Those eggs are pretty cheap.
Yeah, we've gotten over the bird flu. Yeah, no, look, we'll see, and maybe Trump will turn out to be a genius here and will completely reinvent the way that we do the American economy. And he's been very, very successful on immigration and other things that he's promised, and he deserves credit for that.
If the 401ks go up, then you give him the Nobel Prize.
But it's a huge risk, and he's not only betting the future of the entire American economy on this, he's betting the future of the Republican Party as well.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, something that is totally not about politics. Mel Gibson and guns.
That actually is about politics.
Yeah, it is a little bit.
Ties back to the
but
Trump
Mel's got reason to celebrate. We'll tell you when we come back. Mel Gibson is getting his guns back, or at least his right to own guns. I don't know if Mel actually has any plans to go out and buy one, but he has not been...
I think he's going to get a gun. If you're pushing this hard to get your gun rights back, I think you probably want to buy one, right?
He has not. What's interesting about him, the Department of Justice is going to restore his ability to get guns. He has not had it since 2011, after he had pled no contest in an assault case involving his then girlfriend, Oksana. But he could not own a gun, and he had tried to get those gun rights restored. You remember this became a big story last month because the Department of Justice attorney who was reviewing these cases to see if people can get their gun rights back, she said no, that she did not want him to get his gun rights back, and then she said she was fired.
And presumably suggesting that there was pressure from the Trump administration because Mel Gibson is a friend of Donald Trump. He named him a special ambassador to Hollywood, and there was this strong sense of let's help out our guy.
Right. And now, a month later, He's getting his gun rights
And
back.
she's out of her job.
She's still out of a job.
Yeah, Mel's got his guns back. I mean, I'm not too up in arms about that. I don't think anybody thinks Mel Gibson's going to go on a wild shooting spree or anything. It is a little more concerning, though. The pardon attorney, by her own statement to the New York Times, like you said that she was told that Mel Gibson, quote, has a personal relationship with President Trump. And when she opposed that, she was fired over it. So it is a little unsettling that, you go along with what he wants or you're fired.
Yeah, Mel Gibson getting his gun rights back is almost not really the issue here anymore.
Right.
It's about what's going on behind the scenes, or allegedly going on behind the scenes at the Department of Justice.
Adriana from New York. I mean, is this how life is going to be now? Just changing the rules for Donald Trump's loser friends? If Mel Gibson can't have a gun, it's probably for a reason. And firing someone because they don't want to change the rules just for his weird friend is disturbing and awful and really unfair.
Mel Gibson, of course, has had an incredibly successful career and has a lot of fans around the country, but obviously he's frustrated people as well.
By the way, I said it was an assault charge. It was battery against Oksana, a battery charge. But anyway, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, King Charles has some musical skills. I did not know this, but the instrument he's playing is interesting and maybe even tasty. We'll see when we come back. So when your parents always tell you eat your veggies, I don't know that this is what they had in mind, but King Charles, maybe Queen Elizabeth at some point did say to King Charles, eat your veggies. Now he's not just eating them, he's playing them. Yes, as a musical instrument. Listen to this. It's not bad.
So this is there's literally a thing.
A carrot recorder?
Called the London Vegetable Orchestra. And they take vegetables and turn them into instruments. And this carrot is a recorder. And they got the king to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. One thing for sure. There is no way in the world that Queen Elizabeth would have ever done this in a million years.
Someone would have stepped in.
She'd stand by. Maybe she'd watch it, give a polite applause.
Instagram.
She's not grabbing that carrot.
Instagram is going to love that. And I think the king might regret it the next time he goes online.
All in, baby.
All right. That is going to do it for us. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.